How are we?
Good.
Are we all enjoying our convention experience so far?
Yes.
First day for everybody, second day?
Second.
Nice, very cool. This is my only day here, unfortunately, but I had to work. I had to work yesterday. I got to be back in Austin tomorrow, so I'm doing a day trip. I got to be back. I'm driving back tonight, so I'm going to be tired. But I'm going to be here and have fun. We are the Jackalopes of Fire. That really is our name. We're not kidding. We are a brother and sister podcasting team that we've moved into video, so we're a video casting, video, whatever they call it.
We used to do podcasts, now it's all on YouTube.
Yeah, we're all on YouTube. It's JoF TV at YouTube, so check us out. Most of you have cards. If we haven't given you one, make sure you get one before you leave. We are, like I said, we're brother and sister. We've been doing this for 20 years now? No, it feels like it. Going on 10 though. We've been, not officially as JoF, but...
No, I think we've been doing it for about 6 years now though.
Right, so 6 years.
7.
This is our second year participating in the convention scene. Second time that Wizard World has had us come in, and so we appreciate the folks at Wizard World. Say hi to Jeff. Hi, Jeff!
Hi, Jeff. Wizard World's been really good to
very good. So we're hoping to be back in Austin this year.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Anyway, so just really quick, today we are going to be talking about the truth about fan fiction, and we'll explain about that in just a moment. Real quick about me, my name is Chuck, and I'm out there somewhere. I am 37 years old, 37? I just had a birthday, right? Okay. 37 years old. I'm a Gemini. I am a geek, as we were just talking about video games. I love the culture, whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, books, movies, you name it, I'm into it. I'm not a fan fiction writer. Some of you in the crowd may be, and that's great. I'm a fan fiction reader, and she is the writer. So as a team, we have things to talk about. So what we want to talk about today is, what is fan fiction? And to define that, we have to it's more than just what you think it is. So we want to talk about that a little bit. So to answer that, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, well, first of all, basic definition of fan fiction is a story written by a fan, and it can be of a TV show, movie, comic book, any entertainment property really. Basically, if you're a fan and you write a story using characters you're a fan of, that is fan fiction. Kind of says it all in the name. A little bit about me, I do write fan fiction. Been writing fan fiction since before I could even actually write. All started in my head. I was an only child when I was a kid. He is the older brother, but he didn't come into my life until later, adoption and all that. So I grew up as an only child and didn't have any cousins or anything, kind of no daycare. I was alone a lot of the time. So it all started in my head. I created these characters in these worlds, and oddly enough started with a Saved by the Bell fandom, because I was a kid of that era. And then as I started writing, the stories naturally came out of my head onto paper, and then later onto a word processor as I got a computer. And then the fandom changed, went into Power Rangers, combined that with Sailor Moon. I started combining and crisscrossing all over, and didn't really fit anywhere, so I started my own website in 2003, unchartedwind.com, and started putting all of my work there. And then I was surprised because it wasn't just me archiving it for me, people were actually reading it. I was getting thousands of hits on Uncharted Wind, and people were writing me, both good and bad. I actually got a few death threats, which freaked me out, because I'm
That is the appropriate response. Oh. What?
High schooler writing fan fiction, getting death threats about my characters, which, freaky as it is, was kind of cool because it's still evoking a powerful response out of somebody with something I wrote. So that was cool, and of course I had the good reviews too, and just kept going with it. Eventually found my way back into comic books. I'm a long-time Supergirl fan, but got out of comics when they retconned Kara Zor-El out of existence, because in my mind, there is no other Supergirl. When they brought Kara back in the early 2000s, I got back into comics. And
I'm sorry, Matrix made a perfectly good Supergirl.
we're not getting into that. So, eventually I stopped liking what DC was doing, thanks to the New 52, and started writing DC fan fiction. And then it became even more important to me as far as characterization, because then it wasn't just about doing my own storylines, it was about keeping some of the characters I loved alive, characters that no longer existed. Like, for a long time, Stephanie Brown, who has recently come back, but Steph didn't exist for a while. Mia Dearden still doesn't. So it was about just keeping those characters alive in some way. And so fan fiction has always been something that was really important to me, but it's so stigmatized. And that stigma is actually how we got started doing this podcast. It all started a one-off podcast.
Wavy flashback.
Right? It all started because I had heard another podcast, and the sole purpose of the podcast was to bash fan fiction, and it was very generalized in how awful all fan fiction writers are, and nobody should ever write fan fiction. And it really got to me, because not all fan fiction writers are like that. We're not all fangirls that just want to insert ourselves in the story and have this dream sequence and don't care about the characterization. Some of us are real writers. And it bothered me so much that I wanted to do a rebuttal. And so
I actually forgot about that.
we did one podcast and had so much fun that we just kept going, and all these years later it's developed into this.
Right.
So fan fiction is really back to our roots and where we got started. Now, there are different types of fan fiction, and some are better than others. So let's kind of go through the types of fan fiction. There's the bad fan fiction, the self-insertion kind, where all you really want to do is put yourself in the story and you don't care about character depth or characterization. Or
I tried. I giggled. I couldn't.
The term self-insertion makes him giggle.
I'm a 13-year-old child. I keep trying to tell her, change it to self-inclusion.
It's an actual term if you research fan fiction.
I'm starting a boycott. No, not a boycott, a Kickstarter. Ooh, we're starting a Kickstarter. Y'all donate money so we can get this changed to self-inclusion.
But speaking of 13-year-olds, self-inclusion, self-insertion, whatever, is typically connected to 13-year-old girls who want to put themselves in the story, and those characters usually turn out to be what we all know is called Mary Sue's.
Very soon.
And unless you are the writer, most people typically don't like reading about Mary Sue's. It's, for those of you that don't know, it's a wish fulfillment type character. She's perfect. It can be a he. In fact, there's a great example of a he in mainstream.
Somebody knows it.
Yes, apparently.
It's like, ooh, are they going to talk about it?
They are. But the character is perfect. They can do no wrong. Everybody loves them. There is no real characterization or character development, because there's nowhere to develop the character. They're already perfect.
Right. There is no possibility of growth. All you can do is break them down.
Right. And so it's not a real interesting character to read about. And there are mainstream. You can find Mary Sue, not just in fan fiction, but in any type of writing. Two of my favorite examples of mainstream Mary Sues are Wesley Crusher from the Star Trek The Next Generation series and Bella Swan from the Twilight series.
Yeah.
There we go, yeah. You knew one of them. Absolutely, yeah.
Wesley was basically Gene Roddenberry putting himself into the story. His middle name is even Wesley.
I forgot about that, yeah, it is.
So Wesley Crusher is basically Gene Roddenberry's wanting to be on the Enterprise.
He never admitted to that.
No, but it was
So
obvious.
That's just a popular belief.
Obvious.
Roddenberry can do no wrong.
I'm not touching that either.
Just gonna divide the room. We want Star Wars on this side, Star Trek on that side. If you like both, you're in the wrong place.
And so he's an example. And then Bella Swan, Admittedly, I've never read the Twilight books, and I've only seen the first film because he made me watch it against my will. But I know enough about the Twilight series that she definitely falls into that category.
All right, now hang on, let me explain this. Yes, I've watched it. I've watched all the movies, and they got progressively better. They still weren't great. No, seriously, I see the look. No, seriously. The movies did get a little bit better with each film. The effects got better, the writing got slightly better. The books were better than the movies, but even those aren't great. But for a weekend read, it's not bad. I'm just saying.
That said, Bella is a Mary Sue.
Yes, Bella's definitely a Mary Sue. That is a wish fulfillment story, the whole thing.
The whole thing is really.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And the thing is, and this is a common misconception, people that don't read fan fiction automatically, if they see there's an original character in the story, they automatically think, well, they must be a Mary Sue. And that's not necessarily the case. It is very possible to write an original character, put them in the story with existing characters, and have them be interesting and compelling, and people enjoy reading about them as much as the characters from the actual property you're writing about.
Right.
And when I was running Uncharted When, I found that my original character ended up having her own little fan base, because she was very flawed, and there was a lot of character development, regression development, and she became compelling enough that people actually wanted to read about her, which was kind of cool. But she was never meant to be me. She was never meant to be perfect. It was always just, hey, this character would be cool in this story. So that's one kind of fiction, is the wish fulfillment kind. Then you have the gore fiction, which is my least favorite of them all. The best example of this I've ever read, and I admittedly didn't get through the whole thing, was Agony in Pink. It's
Best or worst?
Best example.
Worst fan fiction.
One very graphic. It is a Power Ranger fan fiction for those of you that haven't heard of it, and it's very graphic and very gruesome.
We won't go into details.
No, basically the gist of it is that the villain, Lord Zed, kidnaps Kimberly the Pink Ranger and tortures her to death. But it's very graphic torture.
I gotta ask, because I did this last time. How many of you have read it? I see one. Anybody else? No? Okay. About the same as last time.
Yeah.
One person.
It's pretty graphic.
Yeah.
So if you have a queasy stomach, I wouldn't recommend trying to go find it.
Or at least don't eat anything right before.
No, definitely don't eat anything right before. But just like any genre, it's like horror. You take your favorite characters and you put them in a situation that's very gruesome. And if you like that sort of thing, it can be quality fiction if it's well written. But I look at it as taking something that wouldn't normally be gruesome. Like, you're not going to write, if you write a fan fiction using Scream or Saw, it's going to be gruesome anyway.
Right, you expect it with that.
You take something like Power Rangers or My Little Pony or something that's not usually gruesome, make it a gruesome fan fiction, then you're getting into gore fiction.
That I would read.
Actually would too.
Yeah.
Third type of fan fiction is this is my term for it, quality fan fiction. And this is just something that is fan fiction in the sense that it is using an entertainment property, but the writer is a writer. They're not looking to do wish fulfillment or anything. They're looking at characterization. They're looking at making a story that's compelling, that people want to read. And that's the kind that I've always tried to maintain, is looking at what I'm writing as a writer, not as this is fan fiction. And I think that's the key for any fan fiction writer. Don't look at it as you're writing fan fiction, look at it as you're writing.
Right.
You're just writing. It's just another type of writing. And it's sometimes hard. I know that when I tell people I'm a writer, the next follow-up question is always, well, what do you write? And it's hard to say with any sort of confidence, well, I write fan fiction. A lot of times it's more like fan fiction.
Yeah. At which point they roll their eyes and walk away.
Which is one of the other reasons I started Uncharted When, was so that I could direct people to my writing and there wasn't fan fiction in the URL. It was, I mean, when you get to the page, it's obviously fan fiction, but they didn't go into it necessarily with that already on their mind.
And I've said this before, and I think she's snookering people. She says, oh, I'm a writer, here, go here. They get there, and then they go, oh, man, it's fanfic. Well, I'm here now, I might as well read.
But
That's what I did.
But lately, we've seen some of that stigma starting to fade away,
Yes.
because we're starting to see fan fiction hit the mainstream a little bit more. We have 50 Shades of Grey, which started out, they're making a movie of it now. Admittedly, I didn't read the book. I tried, I couldn't. I have seen the trailer for the movie. I actually may go see that movie.
Okay, here's the thing. I'm going to go off on just a small tangent. This won't take long, very short, because I can talk. I love that Beyonce released a teaser to the teaser of the trailer, or something like that. It's like she released a teaser for the trailer, and then the trailer released like 3 days later. How ridiculous is that? I hate social media some days. I just wanted to throw that out there.
But for those that don't know, 50 Shades of Grey did start as a Twilight fanfic, Master of the Universe. The author went in and changed it up enough, made Bella and Edward into Christian and thank you.
Thank
I blamed you.
I did too for a second. I was like, wait, I just knew that.
Right?
I just had that.
Christian and Anna, and so, and then changed enough that, you know, there wasn't any copyright issues.
Right.
And then released it as a novel. It was successful, making a movie of it. So that's one example of mainstream fan fiction.
Right.
Then also there is a writer, Cassandra Clare. She started out as writing Harry Potter fan fiction and eventually went on to write the series The Moral Instrument, which is very popular.
Right.
And she has taken down all her fan fiction.
See, I find that interesting. That this is something that we talked about, and it's so she started out as a fanfic for Harry Potter and all that, and that's fine. And then she went mainstream. Why delete the previous stuff?
Maybe there were some sort of legal implications.
Maybe because she was going mainstream, legit, whatever you want to call it. It was going to be an issue.
Yeah, I guess. Wasn't she the plagiarist? Wasn't there a big dispute back in the day about plagiarism?
Is she the one?
I'm pretty sure, I'm not in.
I see us over here. You're definitely sure?
There was a law wank about it, yeah. I mean, there was this huge meltdown with the Harry Potter fandom about something.
Oh, okay. So that's why she deleted it, probably,
Yeah.
to appease the people,
Probably.
because nobody wants to tick off a bunch of Harry Potter fans.
No.
I mean, they're wizards.
And it's a big fandom.
It is.
Yeah,
I know it's
it's a
huge.
big fandom.
Hello. You know.
Then another example
Gryffindor.
of fan fiction is Amazon actually has it so that you can sell your fan fiction now. And it's called Kindle Worlds. It gives the fan fiction writer 35% commission on their writing, and you can sell it through Amazon. There are certain properties that they have the rights to, and it has to fall within one of those. You can't do crossover, and you can't do something they haven't secured the rights for. But there's some catches to doing it that way.
Some pretty significant catches.
They are pretty I couldn't do it. Basically, once you publish it through them, they have the rights to it, whether it's situations, characters. For example, I know Pretty Little Liars is one of the fandoms they have. If you write something about Pretty Little Liars, publish it, and you put an original character in it, then the producers or whatever like it, they can use it on the show without acknowledging you as the creator or compensating you any further. And for me as a writer, my original characters, I would at least want some sort of acknowledgement that I created them. I could deal without the compensation. I would at least want acknowledgement
Yeah,
that I
some
created
sort of
them.
created by credit.
Right,
You know, like Bill Finger.
there you go.
Did everybody get that? Bill Finger was one of the co-creators of Batman. Bob Kane, Bill Finger. Bob Kane has had credit for decades. Bill Finger has gotten no credit until very recently. There is a movement to give Bill Finger credit. With the 75th anniversary of Batman out there, if you haven't seen this, go look for it. Support the movement. Bill Finger needs to get credit on his contribution to Batman, because Batman would look like an idiot without Bill Finger.
Absolutely.
So look it up. If you don't know the story, go look it up.
It's all over the internet, definitely look it up.
Yeah, creator credit I think would be important, and you're right. Giving that up would be insane.
Right. As a writer, I could easily give up any sort of compensation for my writing. It would be really hard to give up the creative side of it.
Right.
Because you put so much of yourself into it. So,
And they don't even have to warn you. Now, the odds of it happening, who knows? But they,
just the
they
fact
don't
that it's a
even have to
possibility.
tell you. And that's crazy.
Yes,
That is insane.
absolutely. So that's what fan fiction is. That's how we're seeing it in the media. Let me ask, do we have anybody here that writes fan fiction?
Outstanding.
Awesome, we got
Great.
some writers here. Do you publish your work on the internet? Do you let people read it?
Yeah.
That's good.
How do you get the word out there? Are you like at fanfic.net or whatever? Is it
And
fanfic?
And AO3.
Our name.
Right on. Does anybody have their own website like she's done with Uncharted Wind? Have y'all thought about that? There you go. How's that working out for you?
It's going okay.
Right? Are you, out of curiosity, because this is a question that we had last time, are you using any kind of ads?
No.
No?
I'm not really monetizing it or anything. I mean, it's
Good.
just a creative effort.
Right on. Outstanding.
Yeah, which I always found to be the best way too, because when you deal with fan fiction, you are dealing with a little bit of legal stuff.
Gray area.
Yeah, legal gray area. So I've always found it best, and I've been left alone, not making money off of it. Uncharted Wind, I always kept ad-free, totally free. I didn't even connect it to anything that might even suggest I was making money. It was just, hey, I'm a fan, I did some writing, here you go. And I've never had any legal issues, knock on wood,
No.
or anybody bothering me about it.
Has anybody, any kind of, hey, don't do that kind of thing? Anybody had that kind of confrontation with the original creators? No? See, I had one, not me personally, but we told the story last time. A friend of mine in college, and this is late 90s, so the internet was just really taking off. And he had done that very thing. He was a fanfic writer. He had put his stuff up online, and he was making money some way, and I forget exactly how it was. It wasn't ads like they do now, because this was before people even thought of doing that. But he was making money off this, and he actually got a cease and desist from DC. And I thought that was kind of, wow. It's like, really? These people are nuts, and so that's kind of interesting.
Nowadays, DC would be sending a lot of those out if they stopped
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah, now we talked a little bit about true fan fiction writing. Now, you do something different that
I
is,
do.
in my opinion, it is fanfic.
It is. I've moved a little bit away from doing straight fan fiction, like I'm gonna write a story. One of the things that I've been having a lot of fun with lately is, it's an RP. It's based in the DC universe, and it's me and 3 of my friends, sometimes more, sometimes less, just depending on who's in the game at the time. And we control different characters, and I run it through livejournal.com, and just back and forth writing for our specific characters, and then someone writes their reaction. So it's kind of almost like a round robin type story, in the sense that you don't know what's going to happen next. And I enjoy that because I'm not controlling all the characters. I have to actually react to somebody else's writing.
Right.
And I find that to be fun.
It's like passing around the sharing stick around a campfire.
It is, and it's a lot of fun. And it's also nice because we can keep each other in check. Because sometimes it's easy to write something and not realize that maybe the characterization is a little bit off. And actually, just the other day, me and my friend Jill were playing, and we were doing a scene between Kara and Dick Grayson, and I'm like, that's not something Grayson would do. You need to rewrite that. And
They're quick to get on each other. It's like, that is not how that would have happened.
and sometimes we'll help each other, and sometimes we'll go, you need to put yourself in character and figure out what he'd say, because that's not it. And we stay on top of each other, and it helps with the writing process and making you stay in character, which then turns around, and when you do write something on your own, helps you keep that mindset.
Right.
So writing with somebody, whether it's an RP or just having a co-writer on a specific project, can be very helpful.
I can see that.
And the RP has been kind of like a godsend to me, especially since New 52. A little bitter about New 52.
You know, how long has it been?
I will
4 years now?
I will never stop being bitter.
Yeah. Until they go back.
Which is never going to happen because Didio's not that smart.
Oh, we still haven't done that.
Oh yeah.
We need to do that.
I wrote a song about Dan Didio a while back to the tune of Blame Canada from South Park called Blame Didio. It's a great song, and I will get around to recording it and putting it on JoF TV one of these days.
We said that yet last year too. So, you know, things have changed in our lives.
I have a music video idea in my head. I just have to cast it and actually do it.
Oh, you want to go all out on this?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you just wanted to record the song.
No, it's going to be a music video on JoF TV. And actually, I have some friends coming in for Wizard World Austin later this year. Probably going to do it then. They don't know this yet. After they watch this panel on JoF TV, they will now.
Surprise! Sorry, Jill.
Yeah, she doesn't know this yet. So, anyway.
Oh, and Shannon. Oh, she's going to love that.
I know. So, the RP has been great because we kind of boycotted DC Comics for a while. I've just started buying comic books again since Stephanie Brown's been reintroduced, and that's the only DC comic I'm buying right now is Batman Eternal. So when I was boycotting comics, that was my link to the DC universe, was the RP. And it's been a lot of fun, and still my favorite way to write right now.
Right.
So I enjoy that. And if you ever are having writer's block, get stuck, I definitely recommend trying to find a co-writer. And even if you're just sitting there discussing the characters, talk about it. It helps kind of push the story, keeps you in character, keeps the characterization in check.
Now, we talked a little bit about mainstream fan fiction, and we've given you some examples of people that were fanfic writers that moved into the mainstream. And some other examples that we've mentioned before, and I wanted to bring up, because I still say that these are great examples. Where are my Doctor Who fans? In the crowd? All right. Outstanding. August 23rd. Oh, you've seen that August 25th, it's going to be in some theaters, right?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody saw that. Anyway, so you know that if you're a Whovian, you know that it went away for 16 years, and it was kept alive by fanfic writers. Big Finish Audio is, for all intents and purposes, it's fanfic that they've gotten the actors that portrayed all these characters over the years to reprise their roles, and have some great audio episodes out there. If you've not listened to Big Finish Audio, go find it. It's awesome. They do, and they don't just do Who, they do all kinds of stuff. Star Trek and Serenity and everything. Firefly. But anyway, so 16 years went by, and this man that we all know and love, Russell T Davies, who was a fanfic writer, he wrote Doctor Who fanfic in his spare time. He built his way up through the BBC and got the chutzpah, I guess, to get the backing to bring Doctor Who back to the airs, and it was wow, so good. Russell decided to move on, so he brought on another guy who was a fanfic writer, and in fact, back in the late 90s, did the Curse of the Fatal Death, Stephen Moffat. Curse of the Fatal Death, if you haven't seen it and you're a Whovian, you need to go find it because it's really good. It's this comedic spoof of Doctor Who in which he goes through his 9th, 10th, 11th, he goes through all the rest of his generations, and in his final one becomes a female. So it's really good. If you haven't seen it, it's called Curse of the Fatal Death. Just wrap your mind around that title, because most death is. So it's really good. And Moffat wrote that in the late 90s, so before there was even any thought of bringing Who back, really, because this is after the failed attempt to do it with Fox and all that. So he did that for the BBC, and it was sanctioned and everything. But he's a fanfic writer. People who have continued the work, whether it's Doctor Who or Star Trek. Star Trek The Next Generation was conceived because of fanfic writers pestering Roddenberry. Really, truly. The people who have carried on the legacy of DC Comics and Marvel Comics as the creators have passed on or gotten too old to stay with it, because I'm not sure that Stan Lee will ever actually die. I think the man's gonna be, when the world is over, it's just gonna be Stan Lee and the cockroaches. That's right. There can be only one, and it's Stan Lee. So, you know, and so that's my thing. People who carry on the legacy. Jeffrey Deaver, who was, I think he still is, but what, at least for a while, was writing the 007 novels. He's not Ian Fleming, but he's writing fanfic and getting paid good for it. And that's something that I think people need to think about and to take that stigma off of fanfic. Is anybody who's carrying on a tradition is writing fanfic to some extent. You
There's
know?
all those Star Trek novels that.
Right, all the Star Trek
You know.
novels, even Shatner.
Mm-hmm.
They're not great, but they're there. I love Shatner. I love Shatner.
He's here somewhere.
He's somewhere, and if
Yeah,
you,
he's down
Yeah.
there in the.
absolutely, I see him. I love Shatner, and he's great, and he's still my favorite captain, even over Jean-Luc.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love me some Picard, but Shatner's the man. And his writing is not great. it's just not. But at least he's doing it, you know. And that's something that I think that anybody who has that creative mindset, I think they should try.
And that's something that I
I tried,
don't think
I failed.
people really think about, is these are all examples that do fall into the fan fiction category. They're not usually labeled as such,
Right.
but technically they are.
But because of that big red paintbrush of fanfic, you know, people who are labeled with that have this automatic stigma against them, and I don't think it's fair to those who out there who are doing it and doing it well, because there is good fanfic out there. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things, you were talking about Doctor Who fanfic, you know, Outlander, which is now, I think, a show on Starz. And
Yes.
that started as a Doctor Who fanfic. That's Jamie McCrinnan.
Really?
Yeah, she said that she watched War Games. However, she's one of the authors who will not allow you to write fanfiction of her stuff.
Really?
She says that it's like selling her
Boycott.
children into white slavery. And things
Boycott.
along those lines. So there is
I was
this-
going to watch the show until that. Thank
I know.
you.
It's all over the internet that way. The issue is people who backpedal so hard from the stigma of fan fiction that they start to hold it against fan fiction writers.
Wow.
Which I think that's kind of sad, especially when you have people like the showrunner Hannibal who are like, no, I'm up there writing fan fiction.
Yeah, do it.
So
Outlander, isn't that the one based on the Diana Gabaldon book?
yeah, she will not let you write fan
I've
fiction.
seen fan fiction of the work.
You are not supposed to. You can go read
She's one of the
articles on
ones
it.
who will make you take it down and post
So if she finds it, she does like the cease and desist or whatever.
So yeah.
Wow.
But
So
she's
everybody
starting as
boycott
a
Outlander.
fiction writer. Her
No.
character,
I'm
Jamie,
kidding.
whatever, is Jamie McCrinnan. It is time traveling Scotsman. So
Wow.
And see, I think that's, a lot of people probably do let fan fiction go because you can actually use it to your advantage. It's great promotion for the actual
Yeah, that's my
product.
thing. It's great. It's great free
It's
promotion.
free publicity.
Yeah, do it. So, questions? Anybody else? Anybody else have a comment? Go.
Do you have any advice for people, like, because I'm writing 3 different fan fictions
Pay attention.
for Arrow, Infamous, and Last of Us, and trying to keep the story straight and make sure to continue with the character developments, especially for my OCs.
Mhm.
Do you have any suggestions of like how I could like continue with it? Because I get writer's block a lot because I know where I want them to end up, but I don't know how to get them there.
I have that issue a lot. Actually, I have several pieces on my computer that are in a work in progress folder for that very reason. One of the things I do whenever I get writer's block is you can write the ending first, and then try to figure out how they connect, sort of like piecing a puzzle together.
That's what JK did.
Another thing that I find works for me is just pulling up a blank document and just start writing. It doesn't have to make sense, but just start writing whatever is in your head, whether it's a conversation or whatever. And then sometimes you get something in there that you're like, oh, that's good. Sometimes it just starts flowing out. Those are two things that I do a lot. And then also, like I said, talking to somebody. Sometimes if you just talk about the characters, verbalizing it you start bouncing ideas off each other, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, and you have a ton to write about.
That's something that you and I have actually done. Whenever you get stuck, sometimes you will come to me
And
and do that very thing.
he doesn't read my work, but he knows a lot about my characters because I will do that. I'll go, okay, this is what's happening. What do you think would happen next? And we'll have conversations about it, and then I'll go, okay, and I'll start writing again. So those are all tricks that I use to keep writing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, my question, I have a fan fiction that it's a mega crossover. I pulled from like 14 different fandoms, and it has nothing to do with the source work other than the characters exist.
Okay.
And it's online right now, and I'm getting a lot of people saying, hey, you should publish this. My question is, how do you take something like fan fiction and change it enough that it stays what you wrote without?
You would have to completely change every name that you borrowed. You'd have to change enough about the characters that it can't even be said to be that John Smith is obviously the Doctor. There has to be enough of a difference that it can't be called copyright infringement.
And I've actually run into that issue too, because of my original character having her own following. I've had people say, you need to write a novel with her. Well, I can't. She's too tied to the fandoms I've used. I can't change that aspect of her without changing everything about her. So I've actually and this is still very much in the works. I'm actually getting ready to write my first novel. I'm in the planning stages. I've created a whole new character that's not related to anything I've ever done before. She's not tied to anything, so her characterization is her own. And that's the route I ended up having to take when I sat down to write something that could potentially be published. And actually, I'm gonna write a novel and self-publish it and see how it does. Kind of my first venture out into writing original fiction. Which,
Now, your other option is, of course, get permission.
yeah.
Good luck with that.
Crossing that many fandoms, good luck.
Well, have you ever read The Unusual Avengers Legacy Protocol?
Say again?
The Unusual Avengers Legacy Protocol?
I've heard of, but not read or anything myself.
It would be mine.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And there's
Somebody I work with reads it.
Really?
Yeah, just random.
But it's like 162 chapters, still ongoing, and the characters are so they don't pull at all from fanfic. So I'm still trying to figure out what would I have to change in order to be
Basically have to make it so that it's not recognizable within the fandoms, because if there's anything that can be considered copyright infringement, you are risking legal action. Because it's one thing to write fan fiction, it's another thing to actually publish it and try to make money off of it. That's when you run into issues.
Right.
So yeah, it would involve changing a lot. That's why I was never able to go the route of, I don't know how 50 Shades of Grey managed to maintain as much as it did. From what I understand, it's pretty similar to the original fan fiction, but somehow she managed to change enough that it's...
I think she started changing it early enough in the writing process that the later stuff was able to be just released as is, but
I've never
she
comprehended
probably didn't
that
have to
because
change enough.
I tried. I actually sat down on 2 or 3 occasions and tried, and I was never able to do it.
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
had
just taking one of your stories and doing it would be almost impossible, and you'd have to do it with the Saved by the Bell cast. You couldn't do it Power Rangers. It would have to be Saved by the Bell because that's just a bunch of high school teenagers, let's face it. You
Well,
can
and-
change that.
And
Mr. Belding becomes Mr. Spalding, whatever.
and I'd have to go back with her age a lot. My character has grown since I created her at 5. She started out as this 12-year-old little girl. The most recent story I wrote about her, she's like 34 now. Like that's how much
Why
I.
is she always older than you? She has life experience that you never had. I don't get that.
Okay, think about this. I was 5 when I created her in the Saved by the Bell fandom.
That's true. All right. Whatever.
Common sense, yes.
Go.
How would you create your own website?
There are lots of ways to go about creating a website. I go through Yahoo myself, but I also have a degree in graphic design, so it's pretty much the only place I use my degree now is on my fanfiction website. I am a preschool teacher, which has nothing to do with graphic design.
At all.
So, I have that knowledge, but there are a lot of simple tools out there. If you just go to the internet and Google website design,
Right.
there's a lot of basic tools out there now that makes website creation very easy. And as far as getting a domain, that's just have to find somebody will sell you a domain, and it costs money to have your own domain. I have two. I have Uncharted Win, and then I have jackalopesafire.com for the podcast stuff. And I do pay about $15 a month to have those domains for each one.
Which is not bad.
No, it's not
I mean, it's
bad,
really
but
not.
it is money out of your own pocket. So if you do want to go that route, it is an investment, and you don't make that money back because you don't make money off fan fiction. It's just money out of your pocket. So I think I've had a lot of fun. I still have Uncharted Win up now. I actually posted to it fairly recently.
Really? I thought you had quit posting
Well,
because you've been doing all this other stuff. You've gotten
yeah,
busy.
my friend Joe went to a convention in Chicago and got me an autograph from Steve Harkness, the Red Ranger Rocky, and it sparked some Power Ranger fan fiction. And
Awesome.
after seeing JDF here today, I'll probably go and write some more. So, yes.
I just
Last
wanted to
question.
know where you guys stood on RPF. Because you've only talked about the fan fiction part with the entertainment
Mhm.
property, but real person fiction, what do you guys think on that?
I think I used to do that as a teenager, back when I really was a 13-year-old teenage girl. And to be honest, I do include some real people in my fan fiction, but when I do that, I change their names. It'll be meant to be a specific person, but I'll change, be it a last name or a different spelling of the first name, because my feeling on it is that's an actual person.
Would historical matter to you? Like if they weren't, like Alexander Great?
That's a little different.
That's a little different, yeah.
But when
that's-
you're dealing with somebody
That's just
now,
alternate history.
I know a lot of boy band fans write boy band fan fiction. I would admit, when I was in high school, I did the Backstreet Boys stuff too. I have a little bit of an issue with that, just because you're dealing with real people. As an adult, looking back on it, I'm not really comfortable unless you're changing certain aspects of them as a person. Just because you are dealing with an actual person that may, I mean, very unlikely, but may come across it. And so it makes me uncomfortable. That is all the time that
Yeah,
we
we
have.
are out of time.
Very much appreciate all your questions and interactions. We had a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
And-
JackalopesAfire.com. If you
Yes.
didn't get one of our cards, little black card, please see us. Myself, Priscilla, Sarah with the camera.
And we will be walking around the convention floor,
Absolutely.
doing interviews with cosplayers, artists. Feel free to stop us. We love talking to viewers and other geeks like
Yeah,
us.
absolutely.
So yeah, check us out on jackalopesafire.com, and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.